Hey, good afternoon. We want to welcome you to the 36th Annual CALLERLAB Convention for the umpteenth time, I think. But this is April the 7th, and my name is Mike Seastrom. I'm the moderator of this session, Wind in Your Face, and our panelist today is Mr. Jerry Junck. How about a nice hand for Jerry and for you guys being here? I want you to know that there's a little bit of overlap in some of these sessions. We've had some smoothness, we've had timing sessions, and now we've got Wind in Your Face, and Wind in Your Face kind of involves all of that at the same time. And I think that we kind of base our calling a little bit on keeping the dancers moving in a smooth flowing pattern without stopping and starting between movements, without having them rush thoroughly through the calls, and with at the same time we know that there is a point in time at which certain dancers are okay. We know that there's certain dancers that are going to be standing at any moment, and so we want to kind of break down from, if some of you have not attended previous sessions at this convention about smoothness and about timing, about beat counting and such, we want to kind of just catch up a little bit before we get started. There is a microphone that is hooked. There is a portable microphone, and please, if you have a question, come to the microphone, give your name, where you're from, and state your question on the microphone. Okay, just wander up. Jerry or I will have this microphone at any one time. I want you to know that this handout that you have, Wind in the Face, is kind of a composition of both Jerry and my thoughts on this particular subject. I first had this session kind of as a surprise session last year. We didn't realize when we got to the convention that we were scheduled for it, so we didn't have a handout. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, to pass those handouts back. Why don't you hold them there in the back and just go ahead and pass them out to anybody that comes in. We started out with the elements of smooth dancing and flowing motion. We wanted to break it down into the dancer part of it. We wanted to look at the impact of the music, and we also wanted to look at calling factors. There's also the factors that affect body flow that break down even further, and Jerry's going to go into some of those. I'd like to start out personally with the dancer contribution, because I want to ask, how many of you teach new dancers to dance? Okay? Usually the first 3 or 4 weeks, we're just getting them moving to music. We're just having a great time with them. Usually when the class closes and before that time, I really don't even teach a swing, because I want to take the time to teach them to swing. And so I don't even put that in their face right there. Most of those people aren't used to wrapping their arms around another person that isn't their spouse or someone that they know real close. And so I don't even get them going with that initially. But one of the things I do when we close the class is I get down on the floor and I put on my portable mic and I kind of interrupt them as they're talking, and I explain something about the dance step and the walk step. And years ago, when I used to do a Seastrom with Bob Osgood and Bob in Antwerp and John Jones and those guys, I saw Bob do this, and he's on the stage and he's talking to experienced dancers. These are experienced dancers, but they're dancers from all over the country. And he said, "I want you to just think about something for a minute." I'm going to change microphones here, I think. Yeah, let's see if I can do this and change this just a little bit. Maybe you can hit the treble up a little bit on this one. Yeah, let's try this. Okay. Anyway, I want to step out and talk about when we walk. Now, when you walk, just walking on the sidewalk someplace, your heel always hits the floor first. And that's just a simple walk. We walked in kind of an erect pattern. Some of us have this posture, but most of us try to walk enough erect, but our heel always touches the floor first. Well, the dance step is different. Our toe, the ball of our foot, hits the floor first, and then our heel hits. So it's more of a forward lean, and it's more of a smooth flow like that as you cruise along. You could walk through your dance step, leaning back, and walk all night long. The problem is that you're going to be tired at the end of the evening. And I tell the dancers, I said, initially it's no big deal. You're just walking along, and if you're dancing like you're walking, you're kind of clumping along, your legs are bending, and there's up and down motion of your head and your shoulders, and at the end of the evening, you're going to be a lot tireder. unless, but if you can adopt a dance step or begin to adopt a different, more of a forward lean to your posture, your toe hitting the floor first and then your heel, it's going to be smoother. And if your dancers can kind of adopt that style, it makes it smoother for them to dance. Now a lot of them will I'll get them circling and we'll start working on that dance step and start thinking about that dance step. But if you look at dancers in your groups or anybody you call for that have been dancing for a long period of time, that's exactly what they're doing. They're moving from the ball of their foot to their heel, the ball of their foot to their heel. It's a much smoother step. There's not an up and down motion. You don't see their head bobbing around as they're dancing. They're just moving in a smooth motion. And of course you know that a lot of places you dance, particularly on one night parties, the people are jumping up and down as they dance. And I don't even try to stop that. I mean, some of it you can say, the more up and down you go, the more tired you're going to get, But there's some of that. They just think that's what we're supposed to be doing when we're dancing, and we have that image, of course. Jerry, you have a comment about dance steps? So anyway, it was eye-opening for me to see Bob do this with dancers that many of them had been dancing for a long, long period of time, and it seemed pretty simple. But it was something that immediately smoothed the floor out. And immediately we could tell the difference between these dancers from the very start. He also talked about the art of counter dancing, and we'll look at that a little bit later as we go along here. But I think the idea is getting them to take one step with each beat of music, getting them to smooth out this step of theirs, this walk of theirs, the stroll of theirs as they're moving, dancing. It makes a huge difference, and it adds to that feeling of putting the wind in your face because you're not bobbing up and down in the wind as you're dancing along. So I think that's something if you haven't done with your new dancers, consider doing that, and you'll see a quick difference in a lot of the dancers and how they move along. We'll probably set up a little bit of a square a little bit later and look at some of the movements of counter dancing and the other dancer elements in here, but I'd like to turn it over to Jerry and have him look at some of the factors affecting body flow. And Jerry, if you want, when we do put up a square, we can kind of look through some of this as we go along. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Mike. There are factors that do affect body flow. Body position, which is a little bit of what Mike was just talking about. Are you erect? Have you seen dancers that have their head looking down at the floor? Drive you nuts. They have their head looking down at the floor, or the one that's always looking up. You want your eyes straight ahead. You want people to, I always tell people when they do a right and left through, if you look at them, you will always know whom to turn. If you look away, I guarantee you they'll never be there to turn. Eye contact is so important in body position. A right and left through is the one that just jumps at you. How many ladies turn right rather than look at the guy? If you look at him, he can always turn you, especially out of a right and left through out of a wave. Spin the top, right and left through.
Jerry's comment about eye contact. How many of you have ever done contra dancing? Yeah. Particularly traditional contra dancing. Those people, when you swing it, you better be looking at their face or you get so dizzy you're going to fall over. But eye contact is something we used to do a lot more of square dancing. And if you're not teaching that in your classes, make sure people are looking at you. If you're the dancer and you're looking for somebody else, like the guy, if you're looking for the lady, if your hand's there and you're looking for her when that right and left through, she can't ignore you. I mean, she's apt to get there.
Yeah. I just spent a whole winter working on that with dancers in my beginner classes. Look at them, girls. If you don't look at him, the boys are going to be wrong. That's the way it is. It's a fact. And I work that all the time. Hand availability. I did a thing with Jim Mayo yesterday on basically smooth dancing. But smooth dancing involves a lot of things. This eye contact, body positioning, dancing to the beat of the music, music selection. It's hard to dance if you can't find a reason to dance. It is dancing, and music dictates that. And I'm a stickler for that, and I'm also an old fogey with that, and I don't apologize for it. But hand availability. Everything in square dancing is a right hand followed by a left hand unless somebody says left in front of it. Think about it. Right and left through, square through, swing through. Everything is a right hand followed by a left hand. Dixie style to a wave. Ladies' right hand, man's left hand. Everything is right hand followed by a left hand. I don't care what you do. Think about it. So right hand followed by a left hand. The only exception is for a lady on a star through. That's the only time a lady will use a different hand than a man. Everything else is right, unless you hear the word left. Give that some thought. And if you use right hand, left hand, all of a sudden you have people moving left and right, and nobody has sore hips. Nobody comes away with, boy, my right hip is killing me tonight. Well, that's because all they did was turn right all night. You want to circulate to the left. You want to move people back and forth. That's what wind in your face is. Wind in your face is not stop and go. It's moving. It's moving. And that doesn't mean that you just call head square through 4, swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, pass through, Alaman left. We're going to show you that you can have wind in your face. And while you have to think about the degree of difficulty, you can, if you know what you want to do, if you have a plan with your choreographic program, you can have a little bit of variety without getting difficult and still have wind in your face to make it work. It takes helper words. You have to talk to people a little bit. It takes being aware of how you're going to set people up to do something so they can't make mistakes. You have to have a setup that takes away the chance for them to have a mistake so that you can talk to them. So that's part of it. Body momentum. You need to be moving forward. Square dancing is moving forward. If you see people starting to look backwards, look out. The boys will be wrong. Well, everything happens in front of you, and that's the reason. Overflow. We could go through some of that, but you see so many times guys or gals call something, and if you watch what happens to some of the people, it's fine. As men callers, as male callers, we tend to watch from the man position, and it works quite well, forgetting that the lady is in the center of whatever we're doing, and she may have done a 360, 540, or a 720 degree turn. And then we wonder, well, why did that woman fall down over there? Yeah, whose fault is that? The men's. Right. It's called overflow. These are all things that have to do with smooth choreography, but also with wind in your face, that it feels like you're moving forward, that it feels like dancing. So those are factors affecting your body flow. Michael.
The one thing that I wanted to accentuate was the eye contact, because I think that in our dancing has kind of gone away. And I think when as Jerry said, when your head is erect and you're looking up, you see your entire square. The lights are on. There's more out there. It's more enjoyable. Plus the fact that you're moving and anticipating motions that come together. But as callers, we also have to understand that sometimes the dancers are anticipating an action, and we may have to pre-cue a call in order to make sure they're not automatically moving into where they think they ought to be going. I had a comment from a new caller that's at his first convention here, and he had mentioned that he heard a sequence I did on a tape or an album that was a swing through and boys trade. And he said, but you just called that boys trade really fast. They weren't even done with that swing through. And the reason I do that, and I explained to him, the reason I do that is because most of the time you hear swing through, the boys are running. And so the boys are almost on the way to running. And unless you pre-call the boys trade, you're going to have those guys looking to the right and then realizing, oh my gosh, I got to go to the left. So bark it out there earlier. Give them an extra beat to go, oh yeah, I got to trade after this swing through. So you're setting them up to succeed, as Jerry said. But at the same time, you're setting them up to keep that flow so they're not hiccuping in between what they anticipate you're going to call and what you actually call. And you'll find that there are places where this just helps your flow immensely and keeps the wind in their face, because they don't have to be thinking one thing and then correcting because you came a little bit late with the next command. I think that's really, really important. Very often when you have the heads lead right, they're going to circle to a line. So I commonly will say heads lead right and smile, and I'll stop for just a minute and do a right and left through. I only have to do that once or twice during the dance, and I've set them up for the rest of the dance. If I want a heads lead right and left through, or heads lead right to a do-sa-do, or heads lead right and pass through trade by, I've opened up a whole area of choreography, and they're not thinking circle to a line. And so you can set things up to keep the smoothness going if you pre-cue things, or if you just maybe once in an evening you're going to get a little bit of a hiccup with the swing, with the lead right and a smile, and of course you'll get a little smile out of them, and they'll laugh at each other. But for the rest of the night, you set up that little get in so that you can continue on and keep the wind moving in their face that whole time. So it makes a big difference. One of the gentlemen in our organization, there have been several over the years that have preached smoothness, preached timing. One of them is John Kaltenthaler. John has written a lot in our past pages on that very subject. Jim Mayo is another one, even before Dick Ledger.
Dick was a big stickler for that.
A big stickler. Walt Cole, at the same time. A lot of their articles.
Purpose Spacious Calling.
Yes. Yeah. The art of spacious calling.
Yeah. Purpose Spacious. Remember, that was a word about 75 cents long. What we're talking about with wind in your face is basically choreographic flow. And it's made up of several items. First element is momentum, that forward motion that we're talking about. Second element is body mechanics, right hand, left hand, kinesiology, having to do with flow, moving left and right, moving forward. And then Mike just talked about this conscious or unconscious anticipation. I've seen guys get criticized for saying forward, up, and back you reel, pass through with a wheel and deal. But that sets up a perfect flow. How would you like to have it? And I saw this done. Forward, up, and back you reel, pass through, cast off 3/4. Now that's just not overly smooth. I'll just tell you. Because you set the dancers up for one thing and then had them do another. And even as a gimmick, it's pretty ticky-tacky. So you have this conscious or unconscious anticipation. And then you're also going to have things that work into your wind in your face, into your choreographic flow. Things such as how's the sound in the place? That can affect how your flow is going to be, because you may have to just say the commands and not do a lot of patter just because the sound is a little bit iffy. Then you have to be even more careful with your delivery to provide that choreographic flow that you're working for. Or you may have a crowded situation or a carpet, or you may have a hall that's very long. I used this analogy yesterday. I called in a hall in Fargo, North Dakota one time, had wonderful sound, but 2 squares wide, period. Real long hall, 2 squares wide. You cannot call a spin chain through or relay the deucey unless you said side, square through 4, because you had to have that executed in that direction. Not every caller is capable of doing that. That affects your choreographic flow. That affects your motion. That affects that wind in your face feel. Now, you can't say all night sides square through 4 and then do a relay the deucey. You have to disguise that. You also have to then have the capability of having the head square through 4 but not let them know it. And those are things that affect wind in the face, affect your flow. Then, of course, you have degree of difficulty. If you're going to have very intricate, very difficult choreography, you're going to find that wind in your face goes down dramatically. Now, that isn't to say you cannot have some interesting choreography and still have wind in your face, but that means that your setups, what I talked about earlier, your setups, your things that you're going to call, or the calls that you want to call, you have to have them set up and have in your mind a plan. I'm a very modular caller. that allows me to have a plan to call. Part of our stop and call or stop and go calling that we see in dancing we see is the result of everybody trying to learn how to sight resolve. They call something and say, well, that isn't exactly what I thought we were going to have. Well, and you also have the people who start head square through 4, and at that point are starting to look for the get out already, rather than calling some choreographically, I call them flow modules, having a theme or a series of modules that you want to move people through, and then worry about resolving it. Now, I'm going to get a square up if I can do it, and we might have to move some chairs around, but can we have a square?
That would be great.
Something else that will affect this is music.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Gene, I'm going to ask you to move those chairs this way. Move the Gene, I'm sorry. You're limping. He's got a bad hip. Yeah, you might want to slide these chairs over. Something else that affects choreographic flow, and again, Mike and I were talking earlier about music. Your music will affect how we perceive motion. Everything I do is pretty much smooth type hoedowns. This hoedown is pretty hard not to call smooth. But say you move to here. This is something a little bit different. And it will affect that motion that you feel. Notice the tap of your foot with this. Or you go back to the one before. Same 2/4 beat. But it just feels smoother. Okay? So you take it down. Okay. Here's one. I use this usually my last pattern tip of the night because I just want them to kind of just have wind in their face as we're talking. This thing floats. Just lets them go. Now, what we were doing earlier, I'm going up to this thing. Yesterday when I did some choreography, Jim Mayo did some things with reverse flutter, and I had done some things with Dixie style. This is very much the same. Some of you were there. But let's do this. Head squared through in the middle and to get me forward. 4 hands around the ring. You're gonna do a touch and quarter. Please scoot back and boys go. Boys run around this girl. Get her out of it through and turn the lady there. Flutter wheel. Go girls. Reverse your flutter with the left hand going. Notice how the space is cramped us up. Ladies lead Dixie style of an ocean wave. Then the boys cross run. Ladies trade in the middle. Swing through. And the boy run to the right. Bend the line. To the right of it through. And the turn your lady now slide through. Left down back in the corner girl. Come back, should be home. Notice just having this little crowded space, how much that tempers what you can or can't do. And what I did was use right hand, left hand. I did a flutter wheel. I did a reverse flutter wheel to a Dixie style, to a wave, to a boys cross run. You can do all kinds of stuff like that. Side, square through in the middle, go forward. Be sure you're smiling. There are people watching. Touch and quarter. Scoot back, boy, go. Boys run around the girl. Get her out of the crib, turn the lady there. Flutter wheel, go girls. Here's the right hand. Reverse your flutter, here's the left hand. You're moving the other way. Ladies lead Dixie style of an ocean wave. Boys cross, run to the far right side. Ladies trade in the middle, swing through. Boy run to the right, bend the line. Square through to 3, count 1 and 2 and 3. Left down, man, the corner line should be home. Okay? Now there's a case of using just ordinary choreography, and yet when you put all of that together, you've done a flutter wheel, you did a simple setup, head square through 4, touch a quarter, scoot back. But your meat was in that flutter wheel, reverse flutter wheel, ladies lead Dixie style, and then to get out of the Dixie style, especially if you're calling to newer dancers, the first time they see a left-hand wave is Dixie style to a wave. And another thing you want to think about, and I digress, stop me when I digress too far. When we do a class, we graduate people and say, you know how to square dance. That is a misnomer. We have exposed people to the calls on the list. The first 8 or 10 weeks of that class, they know those calls. The last call they taught was spin, chain through. Did it one tip last night of class. Graduate them. Go to the first dance out. The caller gets up, first tip, spin, chain through. These guys can dance. They've had one tip of spin, chain through, and that's where we're losing dancers right and left. Enough of my preach. I'm sorry.
Jerry's absolutely right. The first tip of your dancers, you want them smooth. You want a piece of music that they can hear your voice. You don't want a lot of noise in your first piece of music. You want them to be able to hear your voice. You want to call the calls on the basic program. Call the calls that they've been doing all the time. Call the calls that they can do almost in their sleep, and let them dance. Let them hear your voice. Let them get used to you, the metering, the timing, that kind of thing. Once they get tuned into that, then you can kind of move forward. So you're calling with a purpose. That first tip, you're kind of getting them used to you as well as seeing what they can do. But you don't have to hit that first, you don't have to hit the end of the mainstream list, the first tip.
The other thing that does, it gives them confidence in them, but it also gives them confidence in you. And that's a bigger issue. Especially if you're calling for your club, they know you. They go in the door, well, I suppose it's about as good as he's going to get. But if you're that guest caller at a distant club or at a club next town, that's the night that you want to shine. And that's the night that you don't want to try to wow people. You want to, the first 2 or 3 tips of that night, you want them to have confidence in you and say, well, maybe next week we'll go over to his club. He's not as bad as they told me. And the idea is if dancers win, so do you. You don't have to call hard to have wind in your face, and yet you can't call just the same old stuff all the time either. There's just all kinds of things. I'll do one and I'll let Mike. Yeah, go ahead. For instance, simple stuff like this. Hit, square, 3 in the middle, go forward, you got to get forward. All the way around you do. Touch 1 quarter. Now, if they ever take scoot back off the list, I have to retire. Now, I'll tell you that. The reason for that is scoot back does a wonderful thing. It trades the people who have right hands. It also turns everybody around. Scoot back. What do we always do after scoot back? Yeah, but we don't have to. That's the point. And we want some flow. Let's do boys run just for now. And around on it. You go slide through. Touch a quarter. Let's do something else. Scoot back and boys go. Boys fold behind the girl. Double pass through. Girls turn around. Touch 1 quarter, make a wave. Ladies trade. Swing through, you do fine. Now the boy run around a girl this time. Bend the line. Get around on it through and turn your lady round. You go. Slide through. Touch a quarter. Scoot back. Scoot back. Girl go. Do a walk and back. Boy fold in front of her front. Look at her. Star through. The boys touch. And the boys trade. Bend the line. And around on it through. Turn the lady around. You go. Slide through. Alabama. Okay, now, I also didn't move people out of their box of 4 because we're so crowded here. But I would maybe couple circulate them to take you out of that box of 4. But the point is, notice that I didn't scoot back and boys run. I didn't walk and dodge and partner trade. None of that is hard. None of that is what I would call ordinary either from that standpoint. But what it does do is it lets you use those calls without giving the dancers a chance to break down. Mike?
Digressing just a little bit in teaching, Jerry has mentioned about stressing forward movement with your dancers. I tell my new dancers that anytime, and all through your square dance career, there is going to come a time when you will, for some reason, blank out or not hear, or all of a sudden you don't know that call. Or what did he say? And it happens to every one of us, including the callers. What comes next? What did I just say? And when that happens, you get that deer in the headlight look. And as a square, you look around, you can tell as a team of 8 people that there's somebody in your square and they've got that deer in the headlight look. And when you're that person with that deer in the headlight look, what you need to do is walk forward and start looking for somebody looking for you. But you're walking forward.
Keep both hands in front of you and don't turn
around. That's right.
around.
And you're walking forward and you're looking. So if even if you're unsure for a minute, move forward, because 99% of the time, that's the way you need to go, and you're going to get help from someone in your square. And making eye contact with others in your square is going to help that success. It's huge. The other thing is teaching your dancers counter dancing. The art of counter dancing as a dancer is huge. We start out with a heads promenade halfway. Go ahead, heads promenade halfway around. All right, they're moving forward. Heads down the middle and a right and a left through. They're right back and out again, okay? Side 2 couples, pass through. Separate and go round 1. Come all the way into the middle, and with your partner in the middle, star through. And then pass through and do a partner trade. And you notice even the heads, as the inactive dancers, are moving apart and coming back together again. The example that Jerry just did, heads past the ocean. Extend. Single hinge. Scoot back. Boys fold behind the girls. Notice the girls stepping into the middle and just that square breathing that occurs in there. You show them, after they learn these calls, show them how the square breathes them. Teach them the art of counter dancing. Girls square through 3/4 round in the middle. Boys, stick out your left hand. Courtesy turn a girl. You got a line of 4. Move up to the middle and you come right back. If the boys have their hand out there, they're not so surprised when the gals come to them. Their left hand is there. Very often they're expecting the right hand. We'll give them the left hand. Move him into what can be smooth for him.
If I may interrupt him also from the standpoint where everybody equates wind in your face to just standard, straight up, head square through 4 choreography. Notice you had the 4 girls in the center, boys on the outside, and he could talk to them. Girls square through 3, boys reach in, courtesy turn. Certainly not what you would consider standard from the standard of boy-girl relationship. Go ahead.
Right. But again, you don't have to be difficult. You can be a little bit different, but you don't have to be difficult as long as you're giving them the right cues. And as long as your square is breathing, and as long as those dancers know how to counter dance. Do a right and left through. Put the girls in the lead and stop right there. One of the things when we teach Dixie style to an ocean wave is I want the gentleman or after that courtesy turn, when you put the girls in the lead, I want you to step back because she wants your left hand. And if you're right upside her backside there's no way she's going to get your left hand. So step back, guys, and extend your left hand. Okay? Give the centers some room in the middle so that they have enough room, and that outside dancer, the gentleman dancer in this case, has a left hand out. He's ready. So if he puts the girl in the lead, but he's standing right up her backside, there is no way he's going to be there. That square has to be spread apart enough, and that's part of the smoothness and part of the wind in your face. Dixie style to an ocean wave. And the boys cross run. Girls trade. Girls run around the boys. Couples circulate. Move them across the square. Girls circulate. Now notice the guys are standing for a minute. Now as a guy, you don't really have to just stand there, because if I had the couple circulate again, the guys are just standing there. So as a guy, keep your feet moving a little bit, and I like to teach that to new dancers. If you're the inactive dancer, keep some motion going, whether you're just swinging from side to side, and sometimes the music will do that for you. You don't even have to remind them to do that.
But don't turn around.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one of the cardinal rules of square dance is never, ever, ever, ever turn around unless we call you turn back. That's the only exception. Yeah. Only exception. Girls circulate. Girls fold in front of the gentleman. Smile at him and star through. Pass the ocean. Move them forward. Swing through. Girls circulate. Boys trade. Boys run. Now, we can bend the line and do a right and left through, or go ahead, bend the line and right and left through. You're going to do it anyway. Or not, right? Or you can pass the ocean, swing through, Boys run. Couples circulate just to move them forward, get some wind in their face again, okay? Now bend the line and reverse your flutter wheel. Guys are in there. Girls are backing up a bit. It works a lot smoother. Can we do a bend the line and a right and left through? You bet. If you bend the line and reverse flutter wheel, there's a little bit better motion going on there, okay? Pass the ocean. Boys circulate. Girls smile. Sometimes you just got to break up the thing. Swing through. Boy run. And you do a Ferris wheel.
Walk forward.
Here you go.
Don't
now,
drag her.
The other thing, this reminds me, centers pass through, do a right and left through the outside too. Veer to the left. I see this time and time and time again. When we Ferris wheel, and you should be teaching this to your dancers, the in-facing couple extends or steps forward, half circulates to a two-face line, okay? And then they wheel and deal. If the in-dancers in that two-face line, the in dancers that are facing in are starting to cut that corner, are starting to diagonally move across, forget it for those center dancers facing in. Right, ladies? How many times have you just been squished in the center on a Ferris wheel? Step straight ahead and then you wheel and deal. So Ferris wheel. Step ahead, then wheel and deal. And the outside dancers, if they're just, they know, you guys have been centers before, right? Give some room out there. Help your dancers help you to make the experience smoother and put that wind in your face.
You bet. Centers pass through, star through, right and left through. Boys slide behind her. And I do this with my beginners. I tell them, if we're going to do a Dixie style, boys slide behind. Notice I said everything's a right hand followed by a left hand. Ladies lead Dixie style. Right hand, left hand. Everything is. I don't care what you call. And if you want dancers to dance, right hand, follow it with the left hand. Keep that motion, that flow. Understand hands. Square dancing to me, and I don't know if I coined this or not, it's the art of dancing with hands. It truly is. It's the art of dancing with hands. And when the people don't touch, boys are going to be wrong. That's just the way it is. All right. Now, music can also affect that. For instance, what happens to how it feels if you do this? You want to call it? Good. Boys cross run to the right hand side. Ladies trade in the middle. But you have to smooth this out with your voice. Swing through. And the boys run around the girl. Couples circulate one place. Chain down the line and you turn that direction. Send her Dixie style to the ocean wave. Put the boy in the middle. Now the boy cross run to the right hand side. The ladies trade in the middle. Swing through. Boy run. Couples circulate. Bend the line. Pass through with a wheel and deal. Zoom. I know there's not enough space. Center square through the three. Left hand in the corner, lady. Come back and you should be home. Notice how that music changes that feel considerably. Considerably. Now, that's an alright piece of music, and it's fun to call to. But if I want wind in my face, it's probably not the record I'm going to look for. Did it feel different? It has a choppier feel.
Well, technically, it has an upbeat. And when you call to a piece of music that has a prominent upbeat, the dancers want to pick their feet up. That downbeat, that boom, 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 makes them put their feet down. But when you get that boom, dip, boom, boom, I mean, that up thing is that it tells the dancers to put their feet up. How many called Fisherman's Luck? I mean, people like that one because it's got an incredible upbeat. And so it's one of those ones that just jumps along. The dancers, it's more of a go-getter because it teaches that upbeat just a little bit. Thanks, Jerry. That's great. All right. Very, very good. Are we squared there? Fantastic. Another thing about the choreography is that the momentum, the sequence momentum that you create in a piece of choreography, you want to think a little bit about that. Sometimes you're doing a sequence, and a lot of us call in sequences or in modules, and if you're not incorporating that part, I strongly encourage you to do that. It's huge in your calling. But have the heads flutter wheel. Sweep a quarter more. Veer to the left. Veer to the right. Reverse your flutter wheel. Boys are coming right in there. Pick them up. Veer to the right. Couples circulate. All right? So one of those, so bend the line, do a right and left through, pass through, wheel and deal. Once again, centers do a right and left through. So I had in this 8-chain through type, or this double pass through formation, centers veer to the left. All right. Now if I have them veer to the right in here, and I want to do something beside a right and left through, or that reverse the flutter wheel, they're moving that way. They can pick that up. So reverse the flutter wheel. All right. Pass through, trade by, swing through. Boy run. Bend the line, pass through, gonna wheel and deal. Zoom. In the middle, square through 3. On the third hand, slide through with your partner, and we should be home just about there. All right? Good show.
Don't clap. It ain't over.
Good. The other way to do this, sides, reverse your flutter wheel. Sweep a quarter more. Veer to the right. Veer to the left and flutter wheel, because the girls come right in here. Now we're kind of tight for this, and I think if you've got a tight situation, this is not great choreography. I rarely call. It's interesting. I had a guest caller at my dance, happened to be Jerry Jeston, and I put him on, and I was dancing, and he was doing this sequence, and I rarely would ever call a flutter wheel from an 8-chain through formation. I think it's too tight. It's just not that smooth. But I was dancing at the time, and it was just smooth as silk. And I said, I just wouldn't. And he said, but think about it. The flow is there if you look at that sequence. And since that time, I've incorporated that sequence. I've just found that that's one of the few times I wouldn't do a right and left through in a flutter wheel. But when you guys veered like that, and if there was plenty of room on the floor, there's a smooth sequence, and the motion of that sequence really helps you to move along right in there. Okay, so I think that's something to think about. Sure.
Okay, and now we can talk about, I'll change this music a little bit because this is more my bag. If we want to get a little bit creative with our choreography, and there is such a difference between different and difficult, and that distinction causes more people more trouble than anything I can name. We equate different as being equal to difficult, and it's not true at all. I don't do centers in cast off very often anymore. And it's something I should do, I just don't. But I use cast off from waves all the time. And I've created a group of modules that I like to use that gives people a little different feel. Let's star through, if you would, please. Pass through, wheel and deal. Centers, pass through, Alaman left, and promenade home. What I'm talking about is this, because I'll use this as kind of my theme for the evening as I'll start to work. About the third tip, after I've got people starting to move around, I take a piece of music like this, and I'll start off this way. Hit square through in the middle, go off the way, touch, quarter, chicken, wave, center, straight. Swing through with the right and left. Boys, you have a girl in your right hand. Cast right 3/4, 5 steps. Girls touch, the girls trade. That's not smooth right there. I have to talk to them. But now I've got them the idea that wave has changed from head position to side position. And I can use a cast 3/4, and we'll just kind of expand that. Swing through, set. One to the right. Couple circulate straight ahead. Bend the line. With a wheel and deal, center, forward to the run out of through, turn the lady, centers, pass through, touch, quarter, chicken and wave, centers, straight, then swing through. You got a girl to your right, cast 3/4 till the girls touch, and the girls trade, swing through, he said, then the boy, runner, and a lady, there's wheel, do a double pass through, leaders, partner, trade, left, back to the corner, come back, promenade, keep walking, don't stop, don't worry about it, promenade, keep walking, trust me, sides, wheel around, and around the third, turn the leg, down you go, and then star through, square through, you get me 3, 1, 2, 3, look for your corner, left down, right in the corner, lady, promenade, your lady, now what I'm looking for is to get some trust on this. And this cast 3/4 thing, you can have a lot of fun with this. And watch what you can do as you expand this on the evening. Side, square, 3 and another 4. Now that's a very standard intro. Touch a quarter, check a wave, center straight. All of a sudden you got boy, boy, girl, girl. You can't talk to people boy, boy, girl, girl. Not unless you're going to say 4 boys, 4 girls. But you can do this. Swing through with the right and left. Got a girl in your right. Cast 3/4 till the girls touch. Now, I've been having the girls trade, but I wouldn't have to. Let's swing girls trade for now, just because that's what we're looking for. Swing through. And the to the right. Fair swing. Center 4. The center's pass through. Touch quarter. Chicken and wave. Center straight. Swing through. Got a girl in your right. Cast 3/4 till the girls touch. Fan the top. And up through. Turn it around. Now, would you say that that's some variety that we're not looking for? And yet, it's not necessarily what I would call standard. But I can talk to the girls, or I can do a scoot back and then do my stuff, and I have the boys, for instance. Pass through with the centers pass through, touch a quarter, trick away, center straight, swing through again, center straight. Girls got a boy to the right, cast 3/4 till the boys touch, the boys trade, the boys run on a girl. Bend the line and start through and the left down and the corner. And you should be home. Notice, all of that's wind in their face. Did you see anybody stopping? Now, the first time through, you got to talk to them. Looking for the girl to touch. Looking for the boy to touch. But as you carry your evening along, you've got all kinds of things that you can do. And then I'll have worked that up in the evening that I have this get out. My last hold-down tip that I might use, head square through the floor. I gotta get forward. Down the right, touch the corner. Scoot back, boys go. Boys run on the leading line. Pass through, turn their tree. Get her running through, turn the girl. Ladies lead, Dixie style of an ocean wave. Boys tree, boys have a girl in your left hand. Pass left 3/4. Have a girl in the boy touch, center straight. Left swing through the left and right. Left down and the corner. Come back and get company. I'll work all night to get there. I work those casts all night so I can use that get out at the end. But I don't want somebody breaking it down, and I don't want to do a left cast till I get to what I'm looking for. And it takes some wind in your face and some trust to get the dancers to do just exactly that.
That whole thing is taking a piece of choreo and expanding, choreographic expansion, just slowly but surely. Look, he had one get out on the end of there that's just a dynamite get out that he was building up to the whole time.
And you wait all night to use this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's only good once.
It's that you're only once a night. But it's that patience to get to that point. And that's part of the challenge of it. But part of that is building continuity, building that trust as you go along so that you can just they know that you're not going to pull a fast one on them and cause this jerkiness. They know you're going to keep moving forward. They know that next command is going to be there ahead of when they arrive. Because you know that there's a command time of a couple beats at least, and then there's the reaction time, and then there's the actual execution time. So you know that you're taking that into account and building that continuity. And
another thing with that, I have a really good friend who shall remain nameless because you'd recognize him, who has some really good get-outs, but when he gets close, he starts to clip that time. I'm going. So many people miss his get out because he got in a rush. And it's just crying shame because he's got good stuff. But when he gets there, you can just see him speed up, start to clip it. And all of a sudden, part of the squares start to go down before he got to that, what you're looking for, what we just did. Just take a step forward, face your corner. Start through, pass through, partner tree. Style of an ocean wave, the boys trade. Boys, you have a girl in your left, cast out 3/4 till the boy and a girl touch, center straight. Left swing through with the left and That's what you're looking for, and that's what I call wind in your face. Wind in your face. And yet, that's not what I call vanilla choreography, for lack of a better term. I don't want to say it's boring choreography, because I don't believe that really exists unless that's all you do all night is one routine. But you can have some variety and have some color to your choreography without ever being difficult. But it takes some planning. And do you have something to call, or should I let these people sit?
I just want to look at something. This was a sequence that years ago in an article that John wrote. John, you wrote this article, I think, and it's in the caller's text. And by the way, if you don't have the caller's text as a reference source and as a source of just it's great in every caller's library. But one of the sequences John wrote in there is a simple sequence that we probably all do. Heads promenade halfway around. Come down the middle, do a right and left through. And the head two ladies chain over. And the head two ladies chain back. And sides, you guys should just rest and take it easy. Now that's a great sequence, 32 steps. And it flows, it moves along kind of nice. But in this article, John pointed out, well, what if you just had the head two ladies chain, head couples promenade halfway around. Notice how I called that a little faster so that they were expecting that. Heads do a right and a left through, and the head two ladies chain. Now, does that seem a little smoother, a little more flow, a little break up a little bit of the flow? It's a little tiny thing. But sometimes, and the sequences seemed very, very different, actually. They were the same calls, same number of beats, and yet there's a whole different feel to it, and there's a little bit more smoothness and flowing action.
I use that for my beginners.
Absolutely. It's
a lot better than heads, or head ladies chain back, right and left through. It just works so nice, and they can work all the calls.
So sometimes think about the sequences you're doing, and think about, particularly with your newer dancers, think about the ways that you can change those sequences without really changing a whole lot, just changing the sequence of it. It makes a huge, huge difference in it. So,
one word of caution. I always say use these things with extreme caution. You saw me use that left hand get out there, Dixie style toe wave. Two of the things you have to do that night is you have to work those cast 3/4 from waves, and you better get them to trust you. The second thing, don't make that the first Dixie style wave you did that night. Because you'll do what this gal did. You'll look right instead of left. And I'm not picking fun at you. But the point is, you have to have called some Dixie styles. You have to have done some left swing throughs. You didn't just call it. And that's where people get in trouble, too. They'll go to a Jerry Story dance who does this wonderful choreography. Man, that's a great get out. And they go home and they wrote it down. First tip, they call that thing. He worked 8 tips to get there. That's why it worked. It wasn't that it was cute. It was that he kind of worked all through that.
Choreographic expansion and choreographic continuity.
Okay, thank you guys. Unless you have more. Go ahead.
I'd love to do just a couple. If you want, anybody wants to sit down a second and have.
Yeah,
if anybody wants to sit down and have somebody else step up, we need one gal. Got him? Thanks, Lynn. We got him.
Thank you.
You know, just some simple sequences that you may have a question on. Head star through, and do a right and left through. Now, isn't that the same hand, guys? Right hand. Every time, I mean, it's the right and the right, guys? Okay? It's not for the ladies, it's a left and a right. But the guys, it's a right and the right. Well, how come that works? There is definitely an element of dancer compensation in there, but the hand is available. Centers pass through. Star through. Start to reach for a right and left through. Look, you're just bringing your hand down, guys, and the hand is right there. So that hand position is where the next call is when you finish that star through. Yes, it's a right and a right, but you're still, okay, do a right and a left through. All right? Slide through, pass through, trade by, touch a quarter. Jerry, I don't know if you remember when Scoot Back first came out, we said, this movement will never fly. It's a right, it's a right, it's a right. Scoot back. You left a right, you got a right in the middle, you come back with a right. We said, this figure will never fly. And, well, you know the result. Dancers like this go.
I'll retire if it's gone.
Yep. Yeah, it's a right and it's a right and it's a right. And I teach the dancers, and I tell them that story because I want them to know a little of the history. And at the same time, I want them to know that we really scoffed at the whole thing for a long, long time. Scoot back again. Girls run around the boys. You can do this too. That works just as nice. Okay? Touch a quarter. Column circulate. Girls run around the boys again.
Watch the counter dancing of the boys or the girls whenever you run.
And this is you almost have to teach that. That's part of the run action, is that sliding action. Teach that. I mean, that's part of that, but it's really important. Touch a quarter. Centers trade. I'm saying centers before they're done with touch a quarter. I want the centers to cue in, okay? Swing through. Boys run right around the girls. All right? Star through. Veer to the left. I hear this, and the girls have definitely compensated. They know that they're used to it. They're less and less. We're starting to make some headway, but it's can you do it? Yeah.
It's a rock and recover. That's what the girls have done.
They have, and the girls have compensated. Do you need to call? Is it something you could kind of lose, and it's just one more thing that can add some flow and add some wind? You don't have them doing a rock and recover, right? Couple circulate, chain down the line. Do a right and left through. Girls on the diagonal. Girls pass through. You lead them on into that. Okay, it's not hard to do that, and yet it's just a little different. It's not difficult. Okay. What about walk and dodge and partner trade? Walk and dodge, partner trade. Girls, you're used to doing that back and forth. It's that rock and recover stuff. You're used to doing that, aren't you? You're good at it. I know you're good. I know you're good at it. And yet we call a lot of that walk and dodge and partner trade. What would be a better thing to do besides walk and dodge and partner trade? Anybody? Have the walkers fold. Exactly. Yep. Do a right and left through. The girls walk, the boys dodge. It's not entirely smooth, but again, these when it becomes questionable, I would think that you would maybe think twice, particularly when you're trying to put the wind in their face and get them flowing. Think about what dancers have to do to compensate for what you're doing. Okay, girls run around the boys. All right, slide through, pass through, trade by, touch one quarter, walk and dodge. Boys fold in front of the girls. All right, star through. Boys connect and trade, and the couples circulate. Make sure you call that couples circulate right before they even begin to finish that trade. Okay?
Notice what Mike did. He said boys connect and trade. I say star through, boys touch, boys trade. If you don't talk to people, they won't touch hands. If they don't touch hands, the boys are wrong.
You want them to cue them and give them a clue. It's kind of, ever been round dancing, you know, they'll say when they'll say face the wall or reverse line. It gives you some general idea, particularly us callers who do caller rounds. You know, we need that little bit of extra direction. We'll give the dancers that, and there's never a hiccup and there's never a problem with the motion because they know I've said centers. And then centers trade. Centers connect and trade. After a while, all you have to do is just centers trade. You don't even have to tell them to connect or touch, as Jerry had said.
California twirl. Couples circulate. All right. Now, I want you to watch Susan, and I want you to watch Sue over there. I went brain dead. All right. Watch these two ladies. There's nothing wrong with this for anybody else. Couples circulate. Couples trade. Couples circulate. Buddy. Everybody else, that's fine. Pay attention. That's what we called by overflow a second ago. Particularly after a coordinate.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And they just got shot down again. Those type of things. I don't call anything after a coordinate unless it's a couple circulate or a bend the line. I just don't. Just because of that. Does that limit my choreography? Oh, well. You know, what's the worst thing can happen? I didn't get to do something else. That's it. Take a look at the dancer comfort. And did you get the girls dizzy? You might get them dizzy enough that they'd have to sit a tip. I'm not kidding.
And it's only 2 girls.
Yeah.
So you go, well, but the percentages are okay. I mean, 6, 2, what's the deal? But those 2 girls are the ones that are going to be glaring at you all night long, and you know that look of a woman, you know.
Yeah.
Bud, I'm in trouble. You know?
Mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
That's right. That's right. So it's important. Bend the line. Slide through. You guys okay with follow your neighbor and spread? All right. Touch a quarter. Now, I see this all the time. Follow your neighbor and spread. And swing through. Drives me crazy. Boy, run. Couple circulate. Bend the line. Yeah, I know. Slide through again. All right, let's just pass through, trade by, get some motion going. Touch a quarter. Follow your neighbor. And spread. The motion is to the girls. The action is to the centers here. It really, if you finish the right hand, if you're going with the right hand again, it's just too much flow. Can you do it? Will the dancers do it? Yes. There's wind in their face because they're moving, but there's just too much turn in action here. That next thing should be a ladies trade or centers trade. Could be a fan the top, can be, but the bottom line is the action is the centers in that case, and it's much smooth. And it's just, if you cut out the gray areas as much as you can, and your spouse or your good friends on the floor, and if you don't have somebody in your club or somebody that dances to you a lot that can come up to you and tell you, that wasn't very smooth, or I didn't like that, or that singing call, just get rid of that one. You need somebody that can be really honest with you, and very often it's not your spouse. So find somebody that's honest with you and eliminate the gray areas, and you'll be able to make smooth things out and put the wind in your face.
Even more than that, if you watch the dancers, they'll tell you. You'll see them go like that. When they start jerking, instantly, maybe I better rethink that.
The other thing that Jerry had mentioned is about this dance of hands we do. The important thing to me is that your feet, your legs are moving you through the square. Your hands are guiding and gliding. And the hand action doesn't have to be pulling. A lot of us have said recycle and pull them on around. It just drives me up the pull. We've started to finally get rid of pull. There's no real pull action here. There's a right hand walk by. But it's not a pull by. And if we can eliminate that from our terminology, whether we're teaching or whether we're calling, it makes a huge difference, because when we're implying that the dancers are pulling each other through the choreography, those hands are just guiding. But use your feet. If people get lazy with their feet and they're pulling each other to move by, then we start getting injuries and we start having problems. So make sure people understand that this is dancing. But the hand action is the art form. It is the smoothness. It smooths things out. All 8 circulate. Girls trade. Girls run. Tag the line. Face to the right. We don't always have to call a swing through and a boys run. Bend the line. Pass the ocean. Once again, all 8 circulate. Now there's an action here for 2 of these gals. They're turning and then they're turning again. But again, instead of a swing through and a boys run, how about the girls trade? The girls run. Tag the line all the way through and face to the right. That gives you the same thing. And you don't have to always do the same thing at the same time.
But if you don't understand modules, you also don't understand what just happened. That was my point.
Yeah, I think, well, that's the thing. There's equivalence. There's equivalence here. And so when you find yourself in a rut, and boy, we all do that. We all find ourselves in that rut. And, so pick that up and give them the variety and vary and think about that right and left action. Why don't you guys sit down and how about a nice hand?
Yes, by all means, because they were up a long time. Questions? We don't mean to preach. Please don't think that we tried to preach. What we tried to do is present reasons for what happens, reasons that we have problems, and possible solutions to resolve those issues to create that dance feel that we should be looking for. Is that a proper way to say it, Mike?
I think so. Was there anything we missed? John, do you think? No? The other thing I want to point out, there's a lot of us shifting to alternate forms of our music, whether it be the computers or the mini disc or the iPod or whatever. And very often in that transition, sometimes the tempo is increased. The number of beats per minute is increased. And I had an interesting thing happen to me several weeks ago at a dance. I had a dancer come up to me and he had this thing that looked like his telephone in his hand. And he said, that was 132 beats a minute. And I looked at my computer. I said, no, it wasn't. It was 126. And he goes, nope. I got this metronome. He had a pocket metronome that looked like an iPod or his telephone. And he had timed me at 132 beats. And I said, well, wait a minute. And so I put on another thing, I put it, and he just timed this thing there. He says, yeah, that's 130. And I had down 124. And he says, what program are you using? And I said, SquareView. And he said, SquareView runs fast. I said, are you a caller? And he said, no, but he says, I'm a musician. And he says, I just had this metronome. And he said, I use it because I teach drum lessons and he's a drummer. But I didn't realize, or had never thought that these computers maybe run a little fast. And that was the first time so anyway, I said, can I play with that thing tonight? So I did. I played with it all night long, and I realized for the first time that that program with SquareView runs a few beats a minute, maybe 4 beats a minute fast. Dottie? Please come up to this is Dottie Welch, and what a wealth of information this lady is.
I haven't carefully documented this, but I began to believe that that's what was happening with Vic's program as well. So, yeah. I mean, I have carefully over the years on every one of my records written down what I counted out to be the beats per minute, and I'd put it on the program, and I'd bring it up, and he would count it. He has a counter on it. Wait a minute. These two numbers don't agree. And then I'd measure it by my wristwatch, and I'd say, I gotta slow this thing down. And I can't quite as clearly confirm it as you have, but I'm pretty sure that there's tendency to speed it up.
Yeah, I thought, I want to go buy one of these things. I want to find out. Yeah, they're inexpensive. Yeah.
I can think off right at the top, as a computer technician, 2 factors that could affect it. It's if he does his coding one of 2 ways, that you're going to see some changes as CPU speeds are faster, and he's not wrote the program in such a way to be immune to the faster and faster laptops. Secondly, if you originally started with a laptop, for the most part, I think they started at 5,400 RPMs, and now you got newer laptops that you could custom order with 7,200 RPMs. Is program not compensating properly for that? Those are 2 right off the top of my head.
Interesting. And you had mentioned these are available. These are available.
Yeah. Matt Rain at Granby, Colorado. I'm a drummer as well, and I have one, but I have not tried it against the SquareView. So now I'm going to have to when I get back home on Thursday and see how it actually times out. But you can have them for as little as $20 or $25 for a low end one and $150 for a real nice one. But
I have a metronome at home that was my grandmother's metronome that's used on her piano. But I'd like to get an electronic one because and to actually see this. So I want you to think about this if you're using alternative vehicles or double check it and make absolutely sure. Vicki, from a turntable standpoint, are these pretty much on or pretty much accurate? I'm thinking they are. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. John says thanks. John.
Yeah, the dots wouldn't lie on that.
Yeah. I'm thinking they won't. And yet, I think that's something you really need to watch your dancers. And I see this particularly with some callers with music that's that slow country song that is a 4/4 timing, that shuffle beat. And very often you're thinking, boy, this is a slow song, but darn it, you watch their feet down there and they're just trying to keep up with you here. So look at your dancers, look at their feet, look at their faces as they're looking at their feet and think about that, because we may be a little bit off here. Now, granted, we've got an age factor too involved here. We're all getting a little bit older and stuff, but at the same time, we just need to. I think if you consider that as well as your choreography. You're going to keep it smooth. You're going to keep them enjoying the dance experience and keep the wind in their face.
Any other questions? If not, I'll catch you in a second. I've really enjoyed being here and doing this session with Mike. Let's give Mike a nice hand.
Thank you. And
fun.
How about a nice hand for Jerry? The question?
Hi, I'm David Avera from Bowie, Maryland. I guess as a fairly new caller and actually not having danced that much longer, I don't know if I've actually know all that's involved in counter dancing myself. Is there any place I can go to make sure that I've got a thorough grounding in that before I try and teach it?
That's a really good question.
I think one of the things is look very carefully at your definitions and think about the dancing experience yourself. Also, if you don't have the caller text, Bob Osgood put together probably 35 years of articles in his magazine that were caller education articles and put them together in a binder that is available from Palomino. And if you don't have that resource, it is a tremendous resource. You're talking about people like Lee Helsel, Bob Van Antwerp,
Cal Golden,
Dick Bruce Johnson, Dick Ledger, Don Armstrong. I mean, some of the real
Ed Gilmore.
Yeah, there's an amazing. There's a piece in this because I have this. This is actually Doc Allenbaugh. This is something Doc wrote in 1953. Okay, in square dancing, poise. Square dance poise. We haven't even mentioned the word poise. Poise means three things. It's the knack of always being in the correct position at the start of, during the execution of, and at the end of a figure. Number two, it's the maintenance of the dancer's balance and equilibrium. And three, it's the coolness and the confidence of the dancer. You've all seen the guy or the gal who always seems to be out of his proper place and during the promenade or wandering around completely away from the circle and tramping the couple ahead or in back of them. The best correction of this and all the faults of poise is constant alertness on the part of the dancer to keep himself in the correct position of all times. And teaching your dancers to put their head up and watch everybody in the square keeps the guy from crashing into the couple in front of you. You're working together as a team. You're a unit. But we'd never consider something, and this is early on in dancing, but they were talking about things like poise. There's also a little thing about, Doc wrote about good bearing. Good bearing goes farther than just correct posture. Much has been written and said about how to be erect, stand tall, put in the dining room, tuck in the sitting room, and the like. Boiled down to simple terms, good bearing is a combination of posture, carriage, grace, and the way you handle yourself. It's the way that you let your arms and your hands follow in natural, graceful paths of movement. It's the way you pick up your feet and set them down. It's the way you carry your head and shoulders, and by all means, good bearing can only be good when it's easy, relaxed, and natural. Now, these are things that I don't know about you, but you've never been taught that, and I've never been taught that. And yet, if you have that in the back of your mind, you have that in your toolbox when you begin to teach things. And that's why I think this is such a resource. Pick an article or two and read through them. It's a marvelous resource called the Caller Text.
Can I just share one lovely little nugget that came to me from a round dance skewer? In a nutshell, nose over the toes.
Gene Triplett from North Carolina. Not being a caller, I don't teach. But one thing we were taught, and I missed a little bit of your session, I had to go out, is we were always taught to hold hands, touch hands as you come back. And I never heard y'all mention that one time. That way you always know if you're in a position. If you touch those hands or hold hands as you come back around, and this is what we were always taught.
Gene is absolutely right. Yeah. That hand contact is huge, and teaching your dancers to take hands is huge too.
I think we did say something early on about that. I said if you're not touching hands, chances are the boys are wrong. And I use that as a joke. You're never wrong. Well, you haven't been married as long as I have, Gene. Yeah. But the point is, and I use that as a joke. I teach for that all winter, and it's become a kind of a contest. The boys say, he's coming after us again. but it is a joke that I use that's rather innocuous, doesn't hurt anybody, doesn't point anybody out. But generally, the boys are wrong. And the boys start to perk up a little. He mentioned poise. That's kind of interesting. Watch people dance and see the ones that kind of slouch. See the ones that are erect, that get there on time. And you'll notice that they're dancing, which is what we're talking about. They're not walking. Does that equate? That makes sense? Yes, please.
Yeah, my suggestion to you is to keep dancing too. Once you become a caller, you sometimes forget to go out and dance. Go out and dance to Mike Seastrom, Jerry Junck, Jerry Story, Mike Jacobs. That's the best teaching that I've gotten to learn how to call is dancing to Mike Jacobs, Dave Lightly, Jerry Story, some of these great guys. I've learned so much from them. I've stole so much from them too. But keep dancing because you learn flow and you learn what works and doesn't work by just dancing. Yeah, research and development.
Thanks, Lynn.
Other questions?
Lynn is exactly right. If you're not dancing somewhat, you're really not only losing the joy of the activity, but you're losing the opportunity to just be out there and experience what the dancers experience. That's part of what winds you up and keeps you excited about this activity of ours. Thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. Thanks for coming to the convention, and we hope that
We hope you've enjoyed the convention, and we hope that you have really learned from the little seminars that we do. Lots of people put in a lot of preparation to present those seminars, and be sure to tell the other guys and gals also thank you because they did a lot of work.
Thanks for joining us.